chocolate potato chips. Without apology, I am River Harter. This is Isaac Bogue, and this is Steven Gamauf, and I am eating Starburst right now. We're going to hop right into this. And so is Isaac. So, for our hot take, we thought it would be a fun game for me and Steve to shoot different brands of things at Isaac, and Isaac would describe them.
Come up with the slogan.
So, for instance, Isaac, Starburst slogan, go.
Starburst, a fruit square that explodes in your mouth.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a few of those just for comedical effect or whatever the thing is, you know what I'm saying? All right, so let's get right to it. Steven, do you have one in mind?
I think I do. Ready for this?
Try me.
True Moo chocolate milk.
Oh my, you're a fool. You've set me up for success. True Moo. Straight chocolate that you want in your mouth. The only chocolate milk that actually tastes like chocolate.
There it is. That's factual. All right, River, go for it.
Okay. Check this out. Babe Ruth.
The chocolate bar?
The chocolate bar.
No, the person.
No, the man.
Babe Ruth. The candy you forget about until you find one on accident.
In your Halloween basket.
From 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's it. All right, Steve. We're going to do like 6 of these, and we're on 2, so let's do 4 more.
All right. I'm thinking this. All right, ready for this?
All right.
Fruit Chews.
Fruit what? Which one?
Fruit Chews. The
Tootsie Rolls?
the Fruit Chews. The Fruit Chews.
All right. Fruit Chews. The 8th wonder of the world.
That's so true, though.
The greatest candy in all existence.
Dude, throwback to when me and Isaac demolished a bag of those on the ride to a retreat, dude. It was terrible.
3 pounds.
It really did.
Something stupid like that. And me and Steve pounded this bag, dude.
All right.
It was so
I
bad.
got one. Sour gummy worms.
Sour gummy worms. All right. Sour gummy worms. What brand are we? No one knows, but every gas station has their own version.
I wouldn't call this a brand, but I gotta end it off with a good one.
No, we got one more after this.
Okay, Chick-fil-A.
Ah.
That's not their actual slogan. Do they even have a slogan? I feel like they don't even have a slogan.
Eat more chicken.
Eat more chicken.
That actually, they have like a MOAR or something. Eat more chicken or something like that. I don't even know. It's something like that.
Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
The fast food chain that is better than most restaurants.
That's so true. That's so true.
How about no.
Oh my goodness.
Chick-fil-A, pre-blessed food.
Double pre-blessed.
That's right. That's right.
Notation
Pre-blessed
device.
Okay.
Now with one ticket to heaven.
Okay.
Look up Julian Smith pre-blessed food. It's pretty funny.
Quality.
Subway sandwiches.
Subway? Okay, first of all, it's just Subway.
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 Eek.
Okay.
Subway.
Subway.
Eat fresh.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Your slogans for the day, featuring
I
Isaac
made that one
Bogue.
up all by myself.
Isaac Bogue. Yeah, that's a good one
So
right
we'd
there.
be like having ingredients out for months.
Dude, that's so true. Dude, you know what's the worst? There's a Subway right by my work, so I'm like always tempted to go there, like, and just get some food and stuff.
$14 sandwich.
Yeah. No, actually,
Subway.
they have some good stuff.
$5 foot long. That's $7.
That's so true. Thank you. Like, there's always this foot long.
At that point, go to Chipotle. That's just what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Chipotle is like $9.
Yeah,
now.
Chipotle is like expensive now. I feel like.
Nice. Oh my goodness.
You're back in the good old days.
Here we go. I got
They're gonna
Starburst.
hear that.
It exploded in my mouth.
They're gonna hear that.
All right. If you want to join in with us, just eat some Starburst while you listen to
Yeah,
us.
casual
make you
Starburst
feel
eating
good.
session.
Or
It's
not,
fine.
and be a nerd like Steve.
Excuse you.
Yeah.
Chuma.
So I was talking to my friend, a very dear friend of mine. She is super awesome, and she's super real. And real people are not common to come by. Like, people who are just like truthful and like straight up. So I always appreciate real people. And she was like, "Yo, I got a question for you." And I was like, "Hit me." And she goes, "In your opinion, at what point does temptation become sin?" Okay? And so, like, these are, like, kind of Bible words. So, like, temptation is, like, the urge to do something that you know you shouldn't do, something like that. So, like when you're a kid, you see the cookies up there. They're not your cookies, but you really want a cookie. And so temptation is just take the cookie, right? And then, obviously, sin is another Bible word. Sin is, like, doing something you're not supposed to do. So, like, the same cookie analogy. The sin would actually be taking the cookie. Okay,
Mhm.
so like we're gonna break down Bible words. So like temptation is just the feeling
The
to
desire.
do something you shouldn't do,
Mhm.
and then sin is the actual doing of the thing you shouldn't do.
Right.
Okay, so to define temptation, okay, in the Bible when they talk about temptation, it is basically a trial of a person in which the individual has the choice of being faithful or unfaithful to God.
Yep.
Okay? That's what we're going with. So a trial in which an individual has the free choice of being faithful or unfaithful to God. And then a sin, in terms of the Bible, is anything against the heart and mind of God, right? So they're like the 10 Commandments, right? Do not murder. If you were the murderer, that would be a sin because God's heart and mind is like every person is made in my image and is special and awesome and unique. Do not destroy that, okay?
Mhm.
Same goes for like everything else,
Yeah.
all the other things, okay? So our question today, what we're going to talk about today, is at what point does that trial, that temptation, turn into a sin? Gentlemen,
Got it.
let's go.
All right. I think a lot of this takes self-recognition. You have to be aware of who you are, the season you are in, and just where your heart's at. Now, what does that mean?
I don't know.
Me neither, but we're gonna find out together, guys. So I'm kidding. So recognize your season. Go to and start by like, all right, I'm a man. I have this this is my family. These are my friends. This is what I do. This is how I work. These are all the hats that I wear to do whatever I have to do. So figure out who you are, what you do, and what hat you wear for whatever you do. So I think that's like the foundation for like understanding what like you're going through. 2, you have to go to sin. Understand who God is and who He's called you to be, right? And that is done by being in His presence, praying, journaling, spending quiet time, reading your Bible, okay? So it's work that has to be done, okay? So once you have a foundation for who you are, and even if you forget that, who God has called you to be, you have an understanding of what sin is, because that is what God is not, okay? Now, once you have a clear understanding of that, it's like pretty not easy, but like you'll understand like, oh, I want to do that, but that doesn't sound like what God wants. So recognizing that temptation and taking hold of it for what it is and moving from there to like, rebuking that, okay? So that is kind of like the process in my mind right now. And obviously you can correct me if I'm wrong or anything, but that's like just kind of what it sounds like in my mind.
No, I love what you said.
Yeah.
I also feel like regardless if you think God is real or like Judeo-Christian God, like our God is like the God,
Mm-hmm.
every person has in their heart like right and wrong.
Yeah.
Right? That's like, so the Bible said like the law is written on your heart.
Mm-hmm.
That what that's saying is like there's not like literally just pen graffiti on your whatever in your heart, but that every person has like a moral conscience. So even if you like grew up in like some random tribe in the Amazon and you never heard of anything, you would just have like an instinct that not to kill somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a moral instinct. And so I feel like for all people, everybody has like a sense of right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's not defined by God,
Mm-hmm.
then you've made it for yourself.
Yeah.
Or like the society of which you are in has made it for you. Like if you walked out in Starbucks naked, everyone would be like, something's wrong with this dude.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you ever, I forget what movie, but basically they get this guy from like a tribe in the Amazon and they like bring him home to New York and he like walks in like naked because that's what his tribe does. And everyone's like, oh my gosh. But those like difference in like cultures,
Mm-hmm.
right and wrong. And so like everyone has their own sense of right and wrong. And what is different for like Christians or someone who believes in a higher power is that higher power defines the right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a really, really good story about this stuff in Matthew 4, and it's the whole entire idea of Jesus being tempted. But the really cool part about it is the beginning part of it. It says, so first off, the title of it is Jesus is tested in the wilderness. So first off, everyone gets tested by temptation
trial.
in their own wilderness, right? That's what it feels like almost when you're being stuck in this temptation. But then it says, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, very casually, he just fasts 40 days and 40 nights, by the way.
Right.
He was hungry. The tempter,
No
so
dip, he was hungry.
yeah, Beverly, no asterisks. He was hungry, by the way. The tempter came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. So basically, Jesus gets tempted these 3 different times, and over again, he's able to kind of rebuke the devil. And he's saying, basically like, hey, it is written, blah, 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 blah. It is written, do not test the Lord your God, like all this different stuff, right? But I really like the beginning part of it because I feel like the fact that we're being told by Matthew, like the devil's name here that he uses is the tempter. Like he is the one who is putting this temptation into our hearts and our lives. And so I think that when you look at kind of what River, like you were saying, I think that temptation really stems from a massive heart issue or heart value that you hold to be very, very, I don't want to say like, just naturally the heart's deceitful and wicked. So, I mean, pretty much like just your heart is naturally going to be this way, and you have to make a tangible choice or like a cognizant choice to say, actually, I'm going to deny that temptation. Actually, I'm going to choose the path that the Lord would put me on. And that would be stemming away from the sin, stemming away from this temptation, so that way you do not fall into that, like Isaac was talking about, the actual sin part of that situation, not just the temptation.
Let me, I think a dude who is super cool to look at all the time is my man David. And David is a king of Israel, right? A great king of Israel. And he's the guy that wrote like a lot of the Psalms, like a lot of books like Samuel and Kings, like that. He's in those a lot. And what's really cool about David is he's very open. He's like one of those real dudes. He's very open about like his struggles. And like in the Psalms, he's like, sometimes he's like, I hate God, or I don't feel God, or like, where's God, or I'm mad at God. And other times he's like, I love God, I'm so close to God. And he's like, he's all over the place. And he's like, I mean, that's what a lot of us are.
Yeah.
But there's this interaction that he has in 2 Samuel 11. I'm reading NIV, 2 Samuel 11. And it says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Amorites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed, walking around the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing.
Oh, no.
The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. So this is like ancient Israel DM right here. You send someone to go find out. The man said, she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her. Another DM. She came to him because, when the king says, get over here, guess what you do? She came to him, and he slept with her. That escalated.
Yeah.
Now,
Very quickly,
she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanness. Then you can guess what that is.
I was going to say,
Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, I am pregnant. Okay? So David sees a girl bathing. Usually you're naked when you take a bath. And he then sends one of his dudes. He says, go find out about her. Finds out about her. Sends bring him over. They do the nasty. And she gets preggers. Okay?
Nice.
Now this is where the story gets interesting. So David sent, it's not interesting now.
Yeah.
So David sent the word to Joab, send me Uriah the Hittite. Okay, so Uriah is off fighting a battle for David right now. Send me Uriah the Hittite, and Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war is going. Then David said to Uriah, go down to your house, wash your feet. So Uriah left his place, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance of the palace with all his master's servants and did not go to his house. David was told Uriah did not go home, so he asked Uriah, haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home? Uriah said to David, the ark of Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house, eat, drink, and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing. So it gets kind of wordy. But basically, David is trying to play this off. So he gets Uriah back from the war. He says, hey, go home. And you know what you do, like when you haven't seen your wife in a long time, you do nasty. So he's trying to like get him to do it with her so that it will like kind of be like his baby. But Uriah is such a nice dude. He said, my other dudes are sleeping in tents and camps and stuff like that. I cannot do that. So blah, blah, blah. The battle's going on. The king gets, so David gets mad. Blah, 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 blah. It's actually not blah, 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 but just for the sake of whatever. Okay, so verse 22. The messenger set out, and when he arrived, he told David everything Joab had said to him. The messenger said to David, the men overpowered us and came against us in the open, but we drove them back to the entrance of the city gates. Then the archers shot arrows at your servants from the wall, and some of the king's men died. Moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. David told the messenger, say this to Joab, don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press on the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab. When Uriah's wife heard her husband was dead, she mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house. She became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. Okay. Recap. David sees a naked woman bathing. David likes what he sees. David, ancient Israelite, DMs her. Yeah. She comes over. They do the deed. She gets pregnant. David then sends to get Uriah, her husband, back from the war that Uriah is fighting for him. Uriah comes home, does not sleep with his wife because it's unfair that the other soldiers don't get to. So David sends him to the front lines of battle, hoping he gets killed. Uriah gets killed. David finds out. David then takes Bathsheba in, marries her, and has his child. Okay, that was a lot. There's a lot in there, and I encourage you all to look at it. But look here. The sin was not David seeing Bathsheba. Okay? It's not you on your Explorer page, and then a tick thought shows up.
Yeah. Dang, I've never heard that before.
That was smooth.
Clever.
That was
I
smooth.
think one of my brothers told me that, but I like it.
I like it too.
The sin is not noticing. I was just at the beach, okay? A lot of girls do not wear a whole lot of things, okay? The sin is not noticing that person is wearing next to nothing. The sin is what happens next, okay? He saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. David sent someone to find out about her. The sin is not seeing it. The sin is staring at it. Mm-hmm. At that moment, when David saw Bathsheba, there was a trial, and he had the choice to be faithful to God and not to be faithful with God, and he was not. And that led to a whole bunch of, he killed someone, right? Sin always leads to sin. Mm-hmm. Sin will always lead to more sin.
Yeah.
But the sin was not David noticing that she was bathing on the roof. Like you're on a Explorer page, you're on the beach, you turn around and you just happen to see someone, you're like, oh, and you look away, right? But once you look away, you now have the choice to look back at that thing, look back at that person, or continue to do what it is you're doing.
Yeah. I feel like also that story shows it's one of those things where if you know people who they tell one little small lie and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And David was like, all right, so I messed up, but let me bring him in. Let me let him, and then all of a sudden they don't sleep together, Bathsheba and Uriah, and then after that it's oh, okay, let's just send him to the front lines to get killed. Then everything will be fine. Let's make we'll make this all right. We'll figure this out. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, this all stemmed from the temptation that you had, King David, all the way back when you just saw Bathsheba bathing on top of the roof. I think that the temptation, if you can tackle some stuff at the temptation with the Lord, then look at how much could have been prevented from that if David would have just been completely okay with the fact of, okay, I saw her, that's terrible, let's look away, we're not worrying about it, we're moving on with our daily King David things that I have to do, right? Not, he's
fighting a war.
Yeah.
There's other things to worry about.
Literally. He's in the middle of a war, and all of a sudden he's like, actually, no, we're going to go, I like that Old Testament DMer, and then proceed to
the original messenger.
Send the original messenger to Bathsheba and figure out about her. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff that, especially nowadays, if you even attempt to get on certain social media, you even attempt to partake in certain activities.
Right.
Heck, if you even go on vacation, like Isaac was talking about, you're going to be tempted, and it's just everyday life. Like, you're going to be tempted in so many different things. And I think that so many times we could just pass it off as like, oh, like it was whatever, it was what it was, like I couldn't help it, or oh, like I happen to be scrolling through, it's human temptation, it is what it is. It's like, well, you have a very, very obvious chance to kind of deny that in your heart and your mind, I think. Yeah. And I think that, like, to keep myself from just keep going on this point, but I think that there's a lot of a heart decision that you have. You can very, very consciously choose even to be like, hey, actually, I feel bad for that person because they're exposing themselves like that on social media. Hey, I feel like this is really on my heart about this type of stuff. You can feel almost convicted about this type of stuff from simply just having like that heart decision in your heart to say, no, I'm actually gonna choose to not look at that, choose to not be tempted by that, choose to not pursue that. Like I think you could even take that a step farther with that. Like you could even be convicted almost of this type of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And like just look at the, like you were talking about the events, the order of events that happened after, like, okay, you saw her bathing. Okay, that's a common thing. Like, people bathe on the top of the roof. You're on the palace. Palace is the tallest building in the city. You look over your city, as kings do, and you just happen to see her, right? Not a problem. But then you see, then you stare, then you act, then you mess up. You try to cover it up. You get a guy killed. Yeah. You, like, the order of events that happen. And, like, all those times, like, if you would have seen and stopped it right there, great. If you would have seen and acted and stopped it right there, like, owned up to it, great. If you would have seen, acted, and, like didn't send the dude off to war, you know what I mean? Like, you have all these chances to stop yourself. And, like, okay, all of us have been there.
Yeah.
Like, how many times you've been on the Explore page and you see a TikTok, and then next thing you know, you click the video, and then you click the account, and then next thing you know, you're doing something you don't want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or you do want to be doing it, because everyone likes to sin, but you know you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
And then what does that lead to? Like, America's the number one consumer and producer of pornography in the world. The number one age group that views pornography is 15 to 30-year-old men. Mm-hmm. The number one growing one is 15 to 30-year-old women. Mm-hmm. The average person is exposed to pornography at the age of 8, and that keeps going down, right? Yeah. That's a bad number, right? So we're gonna like walk around and pretend like none of us deal with this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like none of us like deal with the Bathsheba and like you see a girl bathing. Yeah. That's one thing. To continue the act and the ramifications, and then like all your all the buddies that like all they talk about is like how hot a girl is. All they talk about is like whatever, and that like you viewing that stuff over and over and over makes you see people differently and think of people differently. Yeah. And like that's what we're talking about here. That's the temptation leads to the sin, leads to a mind change, leads to a heart change. Yeah. The order of events. And so when temptation turns into a sin is when you act on that temptation, right? You have, in that moment, you have a choice to be faithful or to be unfaithful to God, right? Not your, like, okay, you're being unfaithful to your, like, spouse or whatever if you're looking at pornography and stuff like that, right? You're being unfaithful to whoever by doing that kind of stuff. But most importantly, you're being unfaithful to the Lord when you do that kind of stuff. And so in that moment, what makes a temptation a sin is acting on that emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? You don't have to like go and like straight watch porn to be in sin. Yeah. Like just opening up that account and looking at that longer than you should, you're in it.
Yeah. Like being angry, envy, jealous, like bitter at your brother in Christ. Like that is like Christ says, like if you've hated him, like that is murder. That's like the equivalent of murder. Anyways, I could go on a whole tangent about that, but like the one thing I do want to say is like I don't know when you're struggling. I don't know when you personally are struggling with being tempted. I don't know when like you personally are going from like, oh, that temptation, now it's an act. I don't know when it goes from temptation to sin. But for when those times happen, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. That is what we're called to do. And that's Philippians 4 through 9. So whenever you're going through that, and I don't know when that is for you, because it all hits us at different times, and it hits us in different ways, you know.
Yep.
Depends on what we're struggling with, whether it's drugs, sex, you know, anger, hating someone, you know. I'm dealing with a lot of, like, anger and, like, trying to understand why. Like, you know, that's personally, like, a thing that I'm, like, trying to dive deep into and, like, understand and isolate so that I don't have to do that. But, like, I can rejoice through that even though I'm being tempted. So no matter who you are, where you are, what season of life you're in, take heart. The peace of the Lord. I'm struggling today with my words. Who is Loy?
The peace of Loy.
The peace of the Lord will come to you. You just have to ask for it. You know, He promises that He'll give it to you.
Right.
You know, multiple accounts. So literally just ask. Focus on those things. Read through that verse. Meditate on it, and pick out those things in your day that will bring you joy in the Lord for what He's done for you, because He loves you and cares about you and wants to take care of you forever and ever and ever and be your friend.
There's a super cool thing in the Bible.
Boom.
There's lots of super cool things, but Hebrews 4:14 is talking about Jesus as the great high priest, right? Jesus as the great role model for us. And what Steve was talking about earlier, when Jesus was being tempted in the desert, it's not like Jesus is, like, unable to sin.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus overcomes sin. He beats sin, right? If he would have sinned in the desert, game over, right? It's just another dude dying on the cross if he would have done that. But no, he overcame it. And in Hebrews 4:14 it says, "Since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who in every way has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne room of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in the time of need." So this is super cool, because it's in the IBT, Isaac Bogue translation. For we do not have a high priest, we don't have a role model who can't sympathize with us, right? A lot of other religions, a lot of other things, like their high priest, their role model, their God can't sympathize with us because they don't sin, they're above it, like they don't do all this kind of stuff. They've never been, like, in this position that, like, others would see as weakness, like even being tempted. Like, why is Jesus even talking to the devil right now? Can't he just, like, throw him across the universe? And, like, sure, yeah, he can.
Sure, why not?
But for us, for our sake, we have a role model who can sympathize with our weakness. Like, Jesus has been there. He's been tempted with the things that we've been tempted with. Mm-hmm. He's been there, and yet, that's the best part, yet without sin. Mm-hmm. Jesus has been in the same situations that we have been in and has shown us that you can, in fact, overcome these things. Yeah. And it says, yet, then let us draw with confidence to grace. Mm-hmm. Let us go to God asking for grace and for mercy with confidence in the time of need, because we know that the God that gives you grace and mercy sympathizes with us. Like, he knows what we're feeling, what we're dealing with, like how hard it is to overcome temptation. And so he invites us to go to him with confidence and ask for peace and mercy and grace and the ability to overcome those sins.
Right. And I think about your friends, right? Are your friends able to sympathize with you? I would say for the most part, yes. Isaac and Steve are my friends. They cry when I cry. They hurt when I hurt, and they laugh when I laugh for the most part. And we get angry at different things, like, together. So we kind of live life together. So they're my friends. Like, and think of your friends, though, okay? Now, this is Romans 5. We went through this yesterday, and this kind of struck me. For while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his Son. Much more now that we are reconciled, shall we be saved by his life. Okay. Now the process, like reconciliation, is being made right with God. It is being God's friend, becoming God's friend. We are allowed to be his friends because before that we were his enemies. And though Adam sinned, now we're all called to die. Every single one of us. Adam, like the first man ever, because he sinned, we were all going to die. But because of Jesus' death, we are given this new life. And I think it's kind of amazing. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent, so stop me if you can. But, oh my God. So because of Jesus' death, we're given this new life full of glory, liberation, freedom from sin. We're called to something so much higher, okay? But like, he's a friend, though. We are now able to be that friend, and that friend who is glorified and perfect, he understands exactly what it is. That friend who went through every single thing with you, who walked through like every moment of life. Because if John 1, in the beginning the Word was with God, the Word was God. That's Jesus is the Word. He's been there since the beginning, through time. He knows you. He was part of the formation of who you are today. So like, he understands who you are, and he lived a real life and experienced all the real things that you experience. Yeah. So he knows this struggle, and he empathizes with you and sympathizes, and he loves you nonetheless, which is so freaking cool. I don't know.
And he overcame it.
And he did that.
And through that gives us the ability to overcome it.
I know. Took it all on the cross.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I got a really cool opportunity. So I talked about this before here on this podcast, but like at our high school ministry, Merge, I got a really cool opportunity to talk to some of the kids who kind of are struggling a little bit with some different stuff. So like some of them struggle with addiction. And it's really interesting to hear some of their stories of how at first it was simply just a temptation. Like at first it was simply just they were with their friends were doing it, so I'm gonna do it too. I was super down on myself. I thought this would help me, and so I did this or whatever it was, right? That temptation. They grasped onto the temptation. They took it for all of its worth, and they started getting into this. And from that, like, there is a very earthly example, I feel like, that addiction can bring that shows how dangerous temptation can be. Because, like, they're now super deep into this. And the one thing that always calms their soul is when they hear the gospel. Like the one thing that always, like, I can always just say, hey, just remember, like, Jesus loves you. Like, just remember that. Like, remember what Jesus did for you. And it calms their soul to know that. And it breaks that whole entire hold of, it's like what you were talking about. There's a whole new life now because of the fact that we have Jesus with, you know, such an incredible story of going through the temptation, going through the same stuff that we went through that we would have been tempted with. And I'm sure a bunch of other that we can't even name. Beat that. Did not fall into the sin of that, rose again, and did it all without sinning. Every second of the earth.
He is straight up like being crucified.
Yes.
And praying for the forgiveness of the dude that just put a nail through
Facts.
his arm.
He's dying. Like I was teaching this at on like our Easter services. He died a sinner's death. Like that is how many other people would have died on the cross like that. He's just another dude that's hung on a cross.
That's the worst of the worst.
You know?
Death.
Yeah. It is just
capital punishment.
It is just what it's just what they used back in the day to just anytime that was like of any sort of punishment or any sort of like capital punishment we would call it nowadays, like that would be the way that would happen. So like Isaac was saying, if this was just some dude that happened to sin, then like, okay, he's like some blasphemer. Cool. Great. Another one on the list, basically. Great. But like he didn't do that. He showed his power. He revealed that to us when he rose again from the dead. That's hence when we taught on Easter. But still, it was like he died a sinner's death when he didn't deserve to die a sinner's death. Absolutely. And so the fact that, like, that question of, like, when does temptation become sin, it's, I think, when you lose sight of that. When you lose sight of the fact that that is how Jesus' life was on this earth, you lose the sight of the fact that Jesus has conquered it all for you, by the way. For you, the sinner, by the way. He's conquered it all for you. And he's risen again, showing his power, showing his love, working those wonderful things he did on this earth, these miracles and everything. But that man never sinned. And he's died for you. So you can, when you are tempted, turn to something that is right instead of turning to something that's wrong. That's
the only way you're going to beat it.
It's the only way you're going to beat it.
By yourself.
Exactly.
Absolutely not.
Like,
you cannot beat it by yourself.
Someone. Like don't tell them like why you're calling them if you have to, but if you need to like get out of like any situation, like just call someone.
There's multiple dudes that I talk to on a regular basis, and I'm like, hey, I'm struggling. I need prayer. And like we like to pretend like prayer does absolutely nothing. Cap. Like you have no idea what that prayer, like maybe that prayer has like removed something from your Explorer page and you have no idea. Maybe that prayer put something in your life that made you not go on your phone right then. Stuff like that. Talking to other people is how we beat this, right?
Absolutely.
The devil wants you by yourself because he knows he can beat you there. He wants you to keep it in the dark. He wants you to never bring it up. He wants you to make you play one-on-one with him because he knows he's going to beat you every time. But with the Lord, the risen Lord who has beat sin, beat death, beat the devil, and can help you beat this, no chance.
Yeah.
Never lost.
Never lost.
Never lost.
Never
So
lost
talk to someone,
Yeah.
dude. Everyone looks at porn. I said it. So if you go to
Boom.
someone and you're like, hey, I struggle with porn, they will definitely say me too.
That's facts.
And if they don't, they lying.
If they don't, they're lying, and now they have a lying issue.
97% of men struggle with pornography. The other 3% are liars. Anyways. Enough
Ah.
said. Enough said. Okay, and just
Women too.
yeah. I don't
Number one growing
know the statistic.
rate.
It is the number
One growing group of pornography consumption is women.
Yeah. Also, wait. Never mind. We'll be good.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to it
this
next
time.
episode. Tune in next
time.
episode where we hear River's tangent. It's fine.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Without apology, we got some new stuff coming your way, so keep your eyes and your ears open. Talk to some if you're struggling, and you know it tears you, it eats you up inside. So talk to someone.
Yeah.
There's no reason to carry that burden by yourself. That's what Jesus does. That's his job. So talk to someone. Get it figured out. Talk to us if you need.
Yeah.
DM our Without Apology Instagram account.
Facts.
It's just us three.
It really
on
is.
it. And we would love to talk and help anybody with anything. So yeah, do that. DM us any questions, anything you want us to talk about. Make sure to follow us on all our social media platforms and like and subscribe because then the algorithm likes us more.
Algorithm.
So like and subscribe. You're the best. Thank you very much. Follow God
Just
without
trying to
apology.
spread the word, you know.